All right, Financial Sector, Unit 4, Video 7, How Banks Create Money. All right, so yes, that is true. Banks create money. We always think of the government creating money. We think of the government printing money. In reality, one of the main ways that new money is created in our global economy and our financial system is actually by banks. They are the ones who create money. This graphic kind of shows you the idea of how they do that, and the reason that they're able to do that is because we have a fractional reserve banking system. So when somebody makes a deposit, they only have to keep a little bit of it in reserve, and then they lend out the rest. And so we'll go through that in this video. Okay, lots of pictures here, and so I'm going to just explain the basic idea. First picture, somebody deposits a check. So let's just use easy numbers, and they deposit $100 into the bank. The bank now has $100, and let's say that the reserve requirement is 10%. So just keeping all of the numbers easy. That means that the bank, as we learned in previous videos, they have to keep 10% of that deposit on reserve, which means they are not allowed to lend out 10% of it. So 10% of 100 is $10. So 10 bucks goes into reserves. The other 90%, they are allowed to lend out. So picture 2, you have a makeshift bank here kind of taking place, and they can lend out 90 of those dollars. So somebody gets the loan for $90, and then they use that $90, and this is where it really doesn't matter how they use it or where they spend the money. The idea here, and again, we're viewing this multiplier as kind of perfect in our world. We're saying that there's no leakages, that they don't keep any of it like in their pocket or put any of it under their mattress. They spend all of it, and all of it gets redeposited into a bank. Okay, so that $90 is going to get spent and goes into a bank where it is now viewed as a new deposit, whether it's by the same bank or by a different bank, it doesn't matter. But there's 90 additional dollars now that have just been deposited. So the bank, again, it's like a brand new deposit. They can now, they have to keep $9 in reserve because that's 10% of 90. So they have to keep $9 in reserve, but they can now lend out $81. So they have $81 to lend. So the fourth picture, they now give another loan to somebody else for $81. And then again, that $81 gets spent, it gets deposited back into a bank, and they have to keep $8.10 of that on reserve. They are able to lend out the other, $72.90 or something, and the cycle goes on and on. And okay, so this is exactly what we just did. This is just another way. This is with it starting as $1,000. And if you want to pause this video and you can look at this graphic, this could be definitely useful. It's exactly the same process. Starts with somebody depositing money, goes to the bank has to keep 10% on reserve, able to lend out the other 90%. They make that loan gets spent, it gets redeposited now by that person into the next bank, and this goes on and on. Easier way to do it, because we could just sit there and add up all of those. So 100 plus 90 plus 81 plus 72.90 plus 64. So we could keep going like that. That wouldn't be very efficient. So we have a money multiplier that we're going to use instead. The money multiplier is going to be defined as the ratio of the money supply to the monetary base. For our purposes, the easy way to think of it is that it's the total dollars created in the banking system by each $1 increase to the monetary base. So again, we're assuming that banks are going to lend out every dollar that they are able to, and that all of the loans that are given out, they are all deposited back into banks. All that cash is spent and deposited into another bank. So there's no leakages. Everything is going into this cycle. And our money multiplier mathematically is going to equal 1 over the reserve requirement or reserve ratio. So for instance, if our reserve ratio is 10% or requirement is 10%, then that is going to be 0.1, 1 over 1/10. So our money multiplier will be 10. So very, very simply, how many new deposits were created by a by a $100 deposit? If the reserve ratio is 10%, we would just do 100 times 10. It would mean that there was $1,000 created or new checkable bank deposits added to our system. All right, so now with that definition, I had said it was the ratio of monetary base to money supply. So here are those two definitions for you. Monetary base and you have basically, I think this Venn diagram is a good way to view it because they have one thing in common and one thing different from each of them. Monetary base is bank reserves plus currency in circulation, whereas the money supply is going to be currency in circulation plus checkable bank deposits. Okay, so when a person deposits $100 into the bank, that is going to be in the money supply. The $10 that they then have to keep as reserves, that's going to be part of the monetary base. Okay, so basically the idea of monetary base and money supply is you have to know how certain transactions will affect each one. So you have to know the difference, which is which, and then just be able to know, all right, if this happens, if somebody withdraws money from their savings account, how does it affect the monetary base, or how does it affect the money supply? Okay, and we'll practice that. Don't worry. This has been a LaMoney production.